In this video, I'm sharing 3 of my favourite ways to explore abstraction through painting. I'll be chatting about this whilst we sit by the fire and settle into autumn, and demonstrating 3 of my favourite processes for you on screen. So if you're somebody that struggles to move away from realism as you see things and towards a looser and more abstract approach, then grab a cuppa and settle in as I chat through my 3 favourite ways to explore abstraction and share some tips along the way. You'll also find timestamps at the bottom of this video to navigate through the 3 different chapters for ideas. One of the biggest challenges that I found when I started learning to paint and to paint abstractly was the openness. Without any constraint of realism, you can really do anything at all, and that, I think, can get daunting quite quickly. If you're interested in exploring abstraction but you're not really sure where to start, I hope that this video helps you find a way in so that it can be a little bit more accessible and so that you can start exploring it for yourself in your own way. This, of course, is not an exhaustive list. There are an unlimited number of ways to explore abstraction, and these are the 3 personal approaches which I love to explore and have developed over years. So if you have a different approach or an idea of what abstraction is and how to explore it in your own work, and you'd love to share it with other people, make sure to leave it in a comment down below to help somebody else out. The 3 approaches that I'll be demonstrating for you in this video are exploring other senses, in this video specifically sound, being led by the process, so playing with visual elements and really embracing play. And the last one, potentially my favourite, is exploring emotions, so looking at how to translate feelings and atmospheres into abstract art. These 3 approaches are what I love to explore most in my own personal work, and I often combine them all together. I'll be creating paintings in the background of this video that demonstrate my own ways of working, and sharing some tips as well along the way. If you'd like even more of a step-by-step tutorial or guide, you'll be able to find those over on my Patreon page, the Outdoor Sketchbook Collective. I'll leave a link to that in the video description down below. Before we talk about these 3 approaches to creating abstract art, I thought we should wind things back a little and start with a question: what even is abstraction? For me, in my own personal understanding of the word and approach in my artwork, it's about the process of removing or reducing. It's not about getting everything that we can see visually in front of us down on the page in the most realistic way possible, but instead choosing the elements that are most important to us and making them the focal point of the work. Sometimes this ends up being things that we can see in front of us, but reimagining them in a new way in our art. And sometimes it's about capturing the things that we can't see in front of us, the things that we can feel or remember. This doesn't mean that the work has to be visually simple or minimalist, although it can be if you want it to. It's more about being really intentional with the choices that we make and the things that we choose to express, and the process of moving away from capturing everything exactly as we see it. Before we get into the steps, I wanted to just quickly say hello and introduce myself. My name is Orla and I'm a painter and an illustrator, and through my work I explore our connections to nature and the natural world. I also love making videos which I share here on YouTube and also over on Patreon, which break down my creative process to help other people find a sense of play in their own work and encourage people to connect to nature through art as well. Let's start with the process-led way of approaching abstract art. I think this is such a lovely way to ease into it because we get to play with the fundamentals of painting in a really loose and free way. In case you're brand new to painting, the main elements that we have are line, texture, colour, shape, composition, value, space, rhythm, and direction. I think it is really normal to be drawn to some of these elements over others. Personally, in my work, I'm really drawn to colour, to line, and to mark making or texture. And I think that is really evident in my paintings. I'm saying this because the list that I reeled off is really pretty long, and if we were to try and capture all of those things and work on all of those things at once, we would get stuck pretty quickly because it's just too much to learn and practice in one go. The joy of process-led painting is that we get to relax, loosen up and switch off an incredibly analytical side of our brains so that we can just really enjoy the process. But if we were to try and capture all of these elements of painting at once, it's going to be really hard to just get into that kind of more instinctive way of working. Naturally, over time, as we practice all of these different painting elements, we will eventually become very instinctive across the board. But until we've had that chance to practice and given ourselves enough time to do so, it's not going to feel very natural. So our first tip is to simplify things right back. We're going to pick 1 to 3 elements from this list of painting elements, and that's what we're going to focus on and practice in our piece. Don't worry about all of the other ones. We can come to them in another painting and work on that over time. The main thing to do is find a way to be relaxed whilst we're painting, and I think we can do this if we make things as easy as possible. The second tip is to look at and simplify our subject matter. We're not trying to capture everything in our painting, and instead what we're going to do is draw a couple of the elements from what we can see in front of us that we love the most and play with how we position them on the page. So take a look at your inspiration and consider what you are interested in or drawn to the most. That might be the horizon line, the shade of the sky, a texture on a leaf that you spotted. From here we get to be really experimental and focus on capturing those elements we've been drawn to in all sorts of ways on the page. Try not to go into this painting with a goal or a visual outcome in mind, and just kind of see what happens and evolves as you're working. As I so often mention in my videos, I really love to use the phrase "what if I ... as a way to remain curious whilst I'm painting and to really tune into the process. Approach number 2 is all about exploring the senses. For me, in my own work, I'm really drawn to music and to sounds, and when I'm painting landscapes, I love to listen in and see what I can hear and try and capture that in my work. You might want to capture a different sense though. We've got touch, taste, sight, smell, sound, and to explore any of these senses, all we need to do is start with the question: if our sense could be captured visually, what would it look like? So if it could be a texture, what texture would it be? If it could be a colour, what colour would it be? If it could be a shape, what shape would it be? And so on. The trick to answering these questions is to think about the quality of the sense that we are exploring. So for me with sounds, I'm often thinking, is the sound jagged or rough, or is it smooth? Is the sound gentle sounding or is it harsh sounding? And really tuning into the qualities of that sense to help me answer those visual questions. My tip with this approach is to really remember that this is all about your own interpretation. There is no one on the planet that can tell you if it is right or wrong, because it's all about expressing your own experience. I would definitely say don't overthink it and just go with whatever comes to your mind first. I've also recently written a blog post which is all about painting to sounds. So if you would like a little bit more guidance, I will again leave that link down in the video description below. Before I tell you about my absolute favourite way of approaching abstraction in painting, I wanted to invite you to a free online event which I'm going to be hosting in October 2024. This is to celebrate 1 year of creating and sharing learning resources over on my Patreon page, the Outdoor Sketchbook Collective. If you'd like to join us for this free session, you can subscribe to my Patreon page as a free member, where you will get access to the meeting link, which will be hosted via Zoom, and I will be sharing that meeting link later on in September 2024. This will be an exclusive Paint With Me kind of party which I'll host via Zoom, so that we can get together as we do every month, have a chat and explore a new idea in our painting practice. If you've been curious about our monthly Studio Play Zoom meetups and you would like to give it a try, this is a really nice opportunity just to see how they work and run. It's also a bonus meetup to say a really big thank you to all of my current Patreon members for all of your amazing support and enthusiasm for the work that I'm making here on YouTube and over on Patreon. Your support goes such a long way in making this channel here on YouTube possible. If live calls don't really suit your schedule or your learning style, I also share monthly pre-recorded video tutorials as well as written guides, monthly blog posts, and a studio share video which goes into the kind of nitty-gritty behind the scenes of my art practice, which I don't share anywhere else. There are 3 different tiers over on Patreon, depending on what and how you would like to learn, or even just to join to help support this channel. I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the video description down below if you'd like to check out the resources or to sign up for the 1 year Patreon anniversary painting party. Our third and final approach to painting abstractly, and probably my favourite way, is to explore feelings, atmospheres and emotions through painting. In my work, I'm looking to capture how places feel, because that's always what stays with me. It's like the famous quote from Maya Angelou: "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." I think this is very much the same for painting, and one of the reasons that I love it so much. The painting process can change how we feel, as can looking at a painting. It can transport us to somewhere else. The main reason that I paint landscape as my subject matter is because it also changes how I feel inside, often for the better. And it is this transformation that drives me to paint. So, how do we go about capturing these emotions or these atmospheres? We're going to be drawing on processes 1 and 2 that we've shared in this video for this. Step 1 is to think about your favourite elements of painting. As a reminder, for me that was colour, line and texture or mark. Step 2 is to pick the feeling or the atmosphere that we actually want to capture and express. Step 3 is to think about those elements that we've decided to capture through our painting, the colour, the line and the texture, and ask yourself, if the emotion that we've selected could be a colour, what colour would it be? If it could be a line, what kind of line would it be? If it could be a texture, what kind of texture would it be? And so on for all of the elements that you want to explore through your painting. From here, it's really about playing with those decisions that we've just outlined and working with them intuitively on the page. Abstraction is also a spectrum, so we can go completely abstract, or we could go somewhere in the middle between realism and abstraction, and that's oftentimes what I like to explore. Pulling in abstract marks and textures from all of those questions that we've just covered, and tie in a couple of visual cues and references just to kind of ground the painting in a slight sense of reference and place.
Oh yeah.
So this leads us nicely onto the why. Why even bother painting abstractly in the first place? And I have quite a few different reasons for doing this. The first one is communication. I absolutely love abstraction because it lets me communicate my own personal view of the world through how I see it, how I feel it, and how I experience it. I love this process of reducing things back to what is most important to me because I'm able to really celebrate that in my work. By saying no to all of the external things and saying yes to the few things that really light me up, I'm able to translate my own perspective. I think music is a really good example of an abstract form of communication that we are all really familiar with. And in the same way that a chord or a melody can express a particular emotion or a feeling or a memory or a moment in time, I think abstract painting also lets us tune into those less verbal and less literate experiences that are really important to life. Self-expression is a big reason why I love abstract painting. For me, painting is as much a therapeutic process as it is a joyful one, and through it I'm able to get to know myself better and to understand the world around me much clearer. It can also just be a really fun and freeing way to make things and an excuse to play, which is often really hard to make space for in our lives. I think for me the process is as much, if not more important than the final result, and that brings me an awful lot of joy in the creation. If you've enjoyed hearing about these approaches, I've shared a couple of my favourite videos that I've made here on YouTube linked down below for you to check out for even more ideas and inspiration. As always, thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to all of my amazing Patreon members for making this channel possible, and I will see you outside.